So you have bad teeth, huh? How bad are they? Tell me how bad your teeth are. What do your teeth do when they're being bad? Do they grind? I bet your teeth grind real hard. Okay, no, that's enough of that. That's enough of that. You don't have bad teeth. Bad teeth don't run in your family. Your teeth are awesome. You just need to know how to take care of them. You just need to know how to take care of them. You've been gifted something incredible and powerful and unique and wild and untamable and exotic with those teeth of yours. Whoever told you you have bad teeth, they were wrong. You have good teeth. You have crazy good teeth. Get that through your head. Crazy good teeth. Patients come to me all the time and they say they have bad teeth. You know, they say bad teeth. Oh, those bad teeth. They run in their family. They usually are despondent when they say this, very much in low spirits. They say it with this resignation. You know, the vibe is that they believe that they are just stuck having bad teeth and nothing can be done about it. You know, it's just a travesty. Nothing could have been done about it. They don't feel good about their smile or the health of their mouth. If you couldn't tell, this bothers me. It bothers me because almost always it just isn't true. I don't say that to be rude or mean to anyone out there struggling with their dental health. I understand the struggle is real. I say that because I want you to feel better about your ability to have great teeth. Teeth are great. Very few people have bad teeth. People think they have bad teeth because they have bad information about how to take care of their teeth and what causes problems for their teeth. I want to help correct that. One of the reasons people think that they have little control over their health in general these days is because the average person has a very poor understanding of biology and genetics. You know, you see a lot of stories in the news about how genes influence everyone's health. Genes do influence our health, right? But news headlines often overemphasize just how much they do that. And there is a negative consequence that this news coverage disempowers people. It makes people think something fundamental about their genetic makeup needs to be modified in order for them to even have a chance at being healthy. That just isn't true most of the time. It's not true. Occasionally, it's true. But most of the time, for most people, that is a harmful exaggeration. Let's talk about genetic determinism, right? This is the idea that your genes determine everything about you. It's the idea that your fundamental biological building blocks are fate. You know, don't bother trying to improve or change anything. You're helpless compared to the overwhelming power of your genes, your genetic makeup. Your genes, they're driving the car. Nothing else matters. Give up. That is the ultimate mentality that is hiding behind the idea of having bad teeth. Our genetic makeup is foundational. It sets the stage for a lot about us, but our genes still interact with our environment. Genes produce proteins. Proteins go to work making us who we are throughout our bodies. But, and this is a huge but that a lot of people totally miss, proteins also interact with the rest of our environment. You know, the stuff we introduce to our bodies, the things we do with our bodies each day. You know, proteins get influenced by interactions with other stuff besides genes, and then genes get turned on and off, you know, get upregulated or downregulated by interactions with the proteins that have been modified by the environment. It's actually more complicated than that, but that's simple enough. You can look up the details on Wikipedia if you want. You can spend hours on there learning about this stuff. Days, months, years. The point is, the communication goes both ways. It isn't just genes barking orders at the rest of your body. It's your body under the influence of your environment and your activity in the world barking orders back at your genes. That means having certain genes does not guarantee a specific biological outcome. The environment we expose our genes to matters. It's not nature or nurture, it's both nature and nurture, which, duh? Like, if evolution had crafted a body that was incapable of change in relationship to our environment, then, well, we wouldn't have evolved. We would have just died because our genes would have been too rigid to allow us to rise to meet new challenges. Understanding your genetic makeup should empower you to consider how you take advantage of genetic strengths and compensate for genetic weaknesses. But you shouldn't feel that you are a prisoner to your genes. There is a lot of flexibility. We are fundamentally much more adaptive than we are rigid. Most of the time, it's not that your genes alone make you overweight or not smart enough or too weak or mentally unstable or give you bad teeth, right? Your genes can predispose you to those things, right? Your environment can predispose you to those things. They can work in concert to make that outcome more likely for you. But there is almost always room for improvement and progress if you modify the external influences on your genes. To use a cliche example, I was never genetically destined for the NBA, but I could practice, eat right, sleep well, condition my body, stretch, and study the game, and I'd end up a lot better at basketball. Just because you don't have a perfect Hollywood smile doesn't mean you can't keep your teeth and gums really healthy with some simple habits in your daily life. You may have bacteria in your mouth that predispose you to getting cavities and gum disease, but with the right habits, you can still have perfectly healthy teeth and gums that never develop significant problems. Why am I making this video again? I want to coach as many people as possible through some simple steps to have healthier mouths, right? I recognize that delivering dental care can be expensive and difficult and time consuming, right? Lots of people don't have access. So they get these inaccurate ideas in their heads about how they're destined to have unhealthy teeth. I want to blow that bullshit apart, all right? That's my goal. I want to blow that bullshit out of the water, get it out of here. So let's think about this, right? What are the ways in which you could have bad teeth, right? What causes teeth to be bad? Let's list them out. You could be more likely to get cavities. That would be bad. You could be more likely to get gum disease. You could be more likely to have crooked teeth. You could be more likely to damage your teeth with acid from gastric reflux. You could be more likely to be stressed or anxious or have disturbed sleep. Things that are associated with clenching and grinding activity of the jaws that can potentially crack or wear down teeth over time. If you really want to stretch it with this genetics thing, you could, let's say, be someone with a personality that tends to engage in riskier physical activities that could pose an increased likelihood for accidents that could damage teeth, right? You could be prone to an addiction to something like nicotine or sugar or methamphetamine, and consistent exposure to those substances due to your underlying genetic predisposition to become addicted could result in deterioration of your teeth and or gums. Fine, I grant all of this. Genes play a role in these things to some extent. You have a body, that body has limitations. But in every single one of those cases I listed above, there are significant and powerful steps you can take so that a genetic predisposition, right, a genetic tendency, does not become a genetic fate for you. I'm not going to go over all of those examples here. I have plenty of other videos on my channel on all of those topics, and I'll be making more in the future. You can pick the ones that interest you the most. Feel free to ask questions in the comments. I'm trying to target this, to be as individualized as I can. I will give one quick example though. This is the most prevalent one, I think. Are some people more likely to get cavities than others? Yes. Is that because of their genes? Minimally, maybe. So this is from the American Dental Association website. It's their webpage discussing genetics and oral health. I'll link it in the video description as well if you want to read it yourself. Dental caries is caused by the acidic environment that results from carbohydrate metabolism when sugars are introduced to the oral microbiome. That means the bacteria that are in our mouth, oral microbiome. That means that in order to get a cavity, a carbohydrate, that's a sugar or carb, that you put in your mouth
has to be turned into acid by bacteria that are clinging to your teeth. Enamel and dentin structure, that's what your teeth are made out of. Some people have weaker enamel than others, but that's not common, and it still doesn't guarantee cavities. So enamel and dentin structure, immune response, that means how your immune system interacts with the bacteria in your mouth, salivary content and volume. Patients with dry mouth who don't produce as much saliva are more likely to get tooth decay, but there are steps you can still take to prevent it. I made a video about that. And oral microbiota, that's the type of bacteria you have in your mouth. These things contribute to the multifactorial and complex etiology of dental caries, but the extent to which susceptibility to caries is under genetic control and which genes may be involved is the subject of some debate. So to reiterate, what does that impossible to understand paragraph mean for you if you're not a dentist or a biologist? Basically, no matter what your genetic or bacterial predisposition to cavities may be, you cannot get cavities if the bacteria in your mouth don't have sugars and other carbohydrates, like say cereal or crackers, to turn into acid, which is what breaks down your teeth. That's how it happens. Your genes cannot do anything to make your teeth implode with cavities if we don't feed the bacteria. Now, do some people have bacteria in their mouths that are more likely to cause tooth decay? Again, let's read a little something from the American Dental Association. Twin studies, that's a study where they look at identical twins, genetically identical people, to see, how much they turn out the same. It helps you to figure out, what may be attributable to genes as opposed to the environment, to the extent you can figure out what environmental influences may have been different throughout their lives. Twin studies indicate that the plaque microbiome, the different types of bacteria present in our mouth, the plaque microbiome is largely hereditary and under significant genetic control in early life or in emerging dentitions, like when you're a kid, basically. But environmental exposures throughout life increasingly affect the taxa present. Taxa just means types of bacteria. So the types of bacteria that grow in the mouth throughout life change based on what we put in our mouth. Let's continue. Acidogenic streptococci species are the most abundant pathogens in the oral environment. But a 2017 study of 485 dizygotic and monozygotic twins found that caries experience was not associated with heritable bacteria and argued that proliferation of cariogenic bacteria, such as streptococci, is primarily a result of environmental exposure, that is, the introduction of carbohydrate-rich foods. Further, archaeological studies of ancient dental plaque show that plaque microflora had become less diverse and more dominated by cariogenic streptococci, particularly S. mutans. Cariogenic means cavity-producing, tooth decay-producing bacteria. So more of those bacteria in the oral environment following the transition to agriculture around 10,000 years ago, and again, more drastically and permanently after the Industrial Revolution. Both periods were marked by a shift towards carbohydrate-rich foods. These studies suggest that the genetically controlled oral environment is gradually undermined by continual exposure to the modern diet. Woo! That was a lot to read. So basically, what we put in our mouths changes the type of bacteria that are present. If we put a lot of carbs and sugar in our mouth, we multiply the amount of bacteria that can feed on those and produce acid and wreck our teeth, right? This makes sense. Like, why wouldn't that happen? If there is a bacterial species that thrives on sugar and we give it a bunch of sugar, why wouldn't that bacterial species grow and multiply in our mouth, right? It makes sense. The more it grows and multiplies, the faster it can turn more sugar into more acid, and the faster it can break down our teeth. That's not genetically determined. That's an environmental input. Now, you may have a bit more of a sweet tooth, and maybe that has something to do with your genes, but there are still lots of ways you can satisfy food cravings with better stuff than a lot of the stuff that we eat in America, especially. And again, it's all marketed to you, and it's what's advertised, and it's what you grew up with, and blah, 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 blah. I'm not saying any of this is easy to change, but it can be changed. You know, it takes a little knowledge, it takes a little effort, but it can be done, right? Genes are not fate. And I'm not saying any of this to judge you or make you feel bad. I just meet too many patients who have spent their whole life thinking and believing they were doomed to have teeth fall apart because of bullshit other people told them, and that sucks. Like, just don't fall for that bullshit. I'm gonna say bullshit because I think it's bullshit. Sorry for the harsh language. I want to close by reading a little from one of my favorite biology books. I'm a biology nerd. I don't know if you can tell, but it's something I like to be nerdy about. I like biology. There's this neuroendocrinologist. That means he studies the nervous system and hormones, stuff that makes up behavioral biology, like what we do. Biologist who teaches at Stanford University, who I think is just one of the coolest dudes ever, Robert Sapolsky. He's written some awesome books. He's funny and interesting. He's got some great lecture content on YouTube. You can look it up. Better than any of my stuff, so check it out. So this is from his book, Behave, the Biology of Humans at Our Best and Worst. You want a tour of how your brain works, how the nervous system interacts with our hormones, how our genes are influenced by our environment, how that has consequences on the individual and social levels. It's a fascinating book. If you're into politics, social psychology, ethics, behavioral economics, just a whole range of disciplines, you'll find really interesting stuff in this book right here. Really interesting stuff. Anyway, let's read some of the good stuff here from Robert Sapolsky. Some of that good old Sapolsky wisdom. This is page 233 of Behave. Genes are not autonomous agents commanding biological events. Instead, genes are regulated by the environment, with environment consisting of everything from events inside the cell to the whole universe. It's a wide range of influences on these genes. Much of your DNA turns environmental influences into gene transcription rather than coding for genes themselves. Moreover, evolution is heavily about changing regulation of gene transcription rather than genes themselves. Gene transcription, that's like how you read directions from a gene. So what a gene tells you to do. That's what's going on with gene transcription. And, not every part of a gene is read at any given time. The environment influences what gets transcribed from a gene. That's what's being said there. Epigenetics can allow environmental effects to be lifelong or even multi-generational. And thanks to transposons, neurons contain a mosaic of different genomes. So then we'll skip over to page 249. Heritability scores are relevant only to the environments in which the traits have been studied. The more environments you study a trait in, the lower the heritability is likely to be. Gene-environment interactions are ubiquitous and can be dramatic. Thus, you can't really say what a gene does, only what it does in the environments in which it's been studied. That's an important point. So this is how he concludes this chapter on genetics here in Behave. At long last, you and I, he puts in parentheses, exclamation point, he was probably exhausted after writing this. At long last, you and I have gotten to the end of this excruciatingly but necessarily long chapter. Amid all these tiny effects and technical limitations, it's important to not throw out the genetic baby with the bathwater, as has been an agitated socio-political goal at times. In parentheses, he notes, during my intellectual youth in the 1970s, sandwiched between the geologic periods of cranberry bell-bottoms and of John Travolta white suits, was the genes have nothing to do with behavior ice age, right? People, and you see this with, you call this social constructivism. This is the idea that you can just remold people to be anything you want, that there's nothing biological about human beings, that you can just reshape our minds and bodies into anything. That's the social constructivist point of view. He's basically saying, no, that's not a thing. Genes do determine things, right? They have an influence. So genes have plenty to do with behavior. Even more appropriately, all behavioral traits are affected to some degree by genetic variability. They have to be, given that they specify the structure of all the proteins pertinent to every neurotransmitter, hormone, receptor, etc. that there is. and they have plenty to do with individual differences in behavior, given the large percentage of genes that are polymorphic, coming in different flavors. But their effects are supremely context dependent, right? Again, dependent on the environment, what they're exposed to. Ask not what a gene does, ask what it does in a particular environment and when expressed in a particular network of other genes, right? Thus, for our purposes, genes aren't about inevitability. Instead, they're about context-dependent tendencies, propensities, potentials, and vulnerabilities, all embedded in the fabric of the other factors, biological and otherwise, that fill these pages. Now that this chapter's done, why don't we all take a bathroom break and then see what's in the refrigerator? Decent advice. I've been talking a lot. You can go take a break and come back to this video if you want. How generous. That's what I'm saying. Robert, he has the reader in mind. He knows you're tired. He's not going to make you slog through this whole book in one sitting. He gives you bathroom breaks. So if you sat through that, hopefully I've convinced you that healthy teeth are 100% within reach for most people. It's rare to be genetically fated to have bad teeth. The earlier we can start with healthy habits for our teeth, the better. I want to help you do that. I want to help your kids do that, your family do that. So please like, subscribe, share, ask questions in the comments. My goal is to build increasingly targeted content that gets real results for people. I'm trying to figure out how best to do that. I'm concerned about the ability of our dental healthcare system to manage the amount of dental disease that is being created by a lot of damaging modern habits. Our modern societies, as cool and amazing as they are not really optimized for health. They think they're optimized for productivity. That's sort of like the main zeitgeist in America, be productive, work, die. But I think we focus too much on short-term productivity and we sacrifice more stable long-term productivity. I think healthier people are more productive over the long term and also have more enjoyable lives. You hear a lot about burnout these days. I think that has a lot to do with people being distracted into putting their efforts into the wrong pursuits, sacrificing too much of their well-being in the present. And it's sort of doubly painful because it's easier to be distracted when you aren't healthy, and it's harder to think clearly when you aren't healthy. I wasted a lot of time when I was younger doing stupid things because I really wasn't in a healthy place, mentally or physically. So I get how that can snowball and make things way harder. So to me, I think the right pursuit is to try as much as possible to establish a base of health, a bottom to the pyramid, a strong building block. America does a great job growing its economy, but we are struggling to stay healthy. I think we can do both. I don't think it's either or. We just have to work smarter. I think you can be healthy and productive. I think being healthy makes you more productive. I've certainly found that to be true in my own life. I'm far from perfect, but the more I've been able to eat the right foods for me, get the right amount of sleep for me, get the right amount of exercise for me, spend time with people I care about and who care about me, and pursue work that I care about, the healthier and more productive I've been, as lame as some of my genetic shortcomings may be. Last point I'm going to make here, if you want solid health advice, probably don't watch the news. You can watch the news, but don't let what you hear or read there be the final word on what you think about how to get healthy. The news likes headlines, especially scary headlines, like those attract attention. If the news can write up a story that talks about a gene that causes cancer, they will do that, because that will scare you and you will pay attention. Getting healthy is actually really boring. It's not exciting. It's not scary. I wish it were. I wish getting healthy involved lots of thrilling and salacious adventures. It doesn't. It's very basic. It's very simple. It's very boring. Learning how to get healthy is not scary or exciting or thrilling. I try to be a little silly, goofy, and put a little zippity zap and make this a little more entertaining, hopefully. But the fundamental reality is that if you want to be healthy, it's going to take a little effort to learn some things and a little effort to change the way you do certain things in your life. and it's going to be kind of a boring process to an extent. You're going to have to learn boring information. But where is the best place to get boring information? From boring smart people, or entertaining smart people. They don't have to be boring. I wish it were any other way, but it's kind of not. Like, I know those newscasters are like hotter than scientists and doctors and so on, but in general, you're better off getting your health info from boring, ugly people. Like, I'm sorry to say this, but it is kind of true. Like, newscasters are often scientifically illiterate, right? They don't understand how to read a scientific study. They have no clue how to interpret statistics. They don't have any real-world clinical experience. Like, if you want solid health advice, don't rely on the news. Seek out professors at prestigious universities, board certified, practicing nutritionists, physicians, people conducting actual research and seeing actual patients. There are tons of podcasts, YouTube channels. There are so many sources for quality health advice at this point. In-depth health advice, practical health advice. Go for the in-depth stuff, the deep dive stuff, and look at multiple sources. Don't just trust one person. Don't just watch what I'm saying. Go seek out a bunch of other information, and you'll figure it out. That's the easiest way to find the truth, is listen to lots of boring people talk about healthy stuff and then figure out what works for you. But just don't get distracted by really flashy headlines like hawking the latest gadget or surgery or pill. Chances are that thing isn't a miracle cure, all right? The news draws you in and tells you that your genes are gonna make you all sick, and then there's nothing you can do, but then they try to sell you a bunch of drugs to fix your broken genes or whatever. Have you ever noticed all the drug commercials on news channels? It's bananas. Some recommendations, if you want some sources for solid health advice, places to get you started, check out the Huberman Lab podcast. That one is awesome. Just start from the beginning. Check out Mark Hyman's Doctor's Pharmacy podcast. You can listen to Robert Sapolsky's book, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, as an audiobook. I like that one a lot. Talks about the effects of stress on our body, how to deal with that. Matthew Walker's Why We Sleep, great book. Huberman Lab podcast, the first month is excellent sleep advice. If you're trying to make any kind of a habit change, I always recommend James Clear's Atomic Habits. Just start going down the rabbit hole. There's like so many good sources of helpful information available these days. Start surrounding yourself with voices that are encouraging you to live a little bit better each day. To reach to be a little healthier, more able-bodied, more able-minded version of you. To have a healthier mind focused on what you want to do with your life. If you have negative people around you, just pop in some earbuds and start listening to people who are going to tell you how to get better, right? Why wouldn't you want to be a better version of yourself, right? That's good for you. The advice will be boring, but the results you get over the long term won't be. That boring advice is going to add up to you gaining the ability to do some incredible stuff in life, right? It's going to make you more powerful, more capable of reaching for goals and withstanding life's difficulties. Are you motivated? Am I motivating you? Woo-wee! All right, that's enough of me. Get out there, kick some ass. Don't let your genes slow you down too much.